Welcome to Art Super for Swab Radio, the first radio station of Swab Art Fair here in Barcelona, sponsored by Art Super. Let's start with our third podcast dedicated to Swab Seed. We thought of a quick meeting between two galleries and two respective artists chosen for Swab Radio. Mouches Volantes with the artist Ihsan Alisan.
Yeah, the curator, the director. The artist Fredo is not here.
Okay, exactly. Thank you. And the artist, so we will have a special meeting today with the artist and the curator.
Sure, yeah.
Duax.
Yep.
Or Duax.
Yep. Duax, yeah, it's a hard X at the end.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. The first question I would like to tell you, and we can start with Ihsan. Mm-hmm. To tell something more about the artist that we choose. So some information more and something that we don't know.
We are presenting an artist from Guatemala living in Berlin named Fredo. Fredo is a non-binary artist who deals with body politics and also a lot of issues about structures and the power dynamics in the porn and sex industry.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And the other question is that for you, so you are the artist of the gallery that you choose, and something, if you can, about your work.
Sure. So the piece that's on view right now is sort of working with photography to print out a background on a fabric and then paint over that. So there's this sort of ambiguity of process. I mean, it's kind of a collage, but it's also kind of a digital process. And I guess there's something kind of between the sort of loose gestural painting or like kind of fast mark making, and then the image which it's painted over is something that is maybe a little bit of a longer process or can be reproduced a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So I've made these big sheets of fabric with different images on them and then used them to paint on top of a lot of times. So the background is the same, but the foreground is different. And I don't know, I mean, it's kind of just making as many as I can and then deciding which ones are the good ones.
Okay, thank you. That's the difficult part for contemporary art. Mm-hmm. Just try to understand what is the job of an artist, a curator, a gallerist.
Sure.
So that's the reason why I would like to know something more about that. And the second question, it's a little bit different, and it deals with the world of contemporary art. Is what do you find difficult in this kind of world? For example, right now we have different perspectives. Mm-hmm. Perspective of the artist and the curator. I think that the world of contemporary art, it's something that sometimes it's hard to deal with.
Well, I think
just like a sport.
I think it's difficult because there's not the same shared body of references. I mean, there's sort of a fracturing of the monoculture, right? Like until, say, 2008, you could reference pop culture and everybody would know about it. But now everybody's in sort of niche interests, right? So it's not even as if there's really a canon in the same way, right? It's like people's interests are so fractured that it's kind of difficult to make a reference that will reach a wide group of people. And then I guess the other thing that's difficult is that people would rather, many people would rather engage with an object on their phone. You know, I mean, I used to print zines. I used to make little magazines and give them to people, and they would put them in their pocket and then, like it on Instagram. So it's kind of difficult to get people to look at anything, even if they do look at it. They'd rather look at it through their phone sometimes.
Yes, for sure. And for you?
And also I think that the topics we're dealing with are sometimes ahead of the time or just contemporarily discussed. And to get this wide acknowledgement or the how can you say, that people recognize it as relevant, it takes some bit time. Maybe today it's quicker than in other times before, but I realized, for example, for our booth, that a lot of young people are very well attracted to it because they understand the language and mechanism behind that, because as you said, they are used to telephones and digital transportation of the contents. But on the other hand, it's also, I believe in that. It's a growing number of collectors on every level that are also interested in this ahead of time. And this, we are the, so to say, avant-garde. We don't use that word anymore, but still it's a very avant-gardistic way to deal with works as we do, with identity, with also certain topics as we have with pornography or this industry. So these kind of topics are, as you said, kind of niches, but still very relevant, because if, for example, in our case, if you look at most of the internet traffic is done by sexual content, but nobody talks about the power dynamics behind that. And so until it becomes aware for everybody, and even then also to be, in a way, we are not only artist supporters, but also, in a way, artist has to survive and live with his income as an artist. And this is what I believe in too. And it is yet the challenge to achieve this level of recognition and also this collector space to build up, because we are looking for, female or person of colors or young persons or also queer people to get involved into the art scene, and also get involved not just as artists but also as curators and also as collectors. And I think it's a very interesting time right now to build up the structures. And that's also the biggest challenge. I wouldn't say problems, but I think it's a ongoing project right now to find also all the structures that support this kind of art.
For sure. I got it. I perfectly understand what you're saying. The line, it's a little bit blurred, but it's something that deals with possibility. So, okay, the last question that I would like to propose you. The first experience with the world of contemporary art. So, what do you love about this job? What just takes you to this direction?
Well, I guess it wasn't until I was probably in my early 20s that it occurred to me that there were people alive today making this stuff. I was reading about, high modernism and thinking it was cool. But then my idea of what a career in aesthetics was, I guess, was like making rave flyers or like designing video games or something. So I hadn't occurred to me that there really that it was an option for me, until, and I was thinking, because you sent me the questions, what was your first experience with contemporary art? And I guess it's kind of silly and not like he's a major touchstone for my work, but I think I went and saw the Jeff Wall show. I saw a Jeff Wall retrospective, and I feel like that was maybe the first time that I was thinking of this is just a guy who's exists in the world today. I guess I kind of my idea of an artist before that was always like somebody from the 1960s, or 1920s even. It kind of didn't occur to me that fine art had kept going until I was probably 22. And I was painting, I was still making artwork, but I didn't really put the streams together, I guess, until a certain point.
Thank you. For you, Ihsan?
It's not so easy, actually. I remember being in the 5th class, and our art teacher taught us about Joseph Beuys and about his conceptual works, that especially there are anecdotes like artworks that have been destroyed because they were not recognized as artworks. And before that, it was clear for me, at least everyone knows what the canvas is and so on. But to consider to go into that conceptual way, it was really mind-blowing for me to understand it this way. But also practically, I have to admit that I was always fascinated by street art or graffiti works. not just because I understood, but I was so young and I could see all the colorful paintings on the railways, and I couldn't really figure out what it was, but I was attracted to it because also this kind of bottom-up democratic. Now I reflect it this way, but before I wasn't aware. But I was just fascinated on the approaches that people just take their own colors and paint something on walls and do it in an autonomous way. The dimension became clearer to me much more later, but I remember being with people who also did that, and I was so fascinated by this act of self entitlement. So these two things are very important aspects of contemporary thinking, what I also see in artworks. Yeah.
And what has been changed for you right now that you're working?
Well,
From this first vision and now that you're in at all.
Yeah, I can say, I mean, there are many, many big movements going on. Like one of them is the digitalization. The other, it's also with the digitalization, a lot of people can contribute and take part of that big discussion that we call art. And it makes a big difference if like identities and persons and cultural backgrounds are also on the table, which were before filtered out by some canonic ideas or institutions. And even these institutions change right now. I was just recently, second time at the Documenta, and maybe you've heard about that. It was like a lot of community collective works, which is also a big development. So I think we are on a very interesting point of time when things are changing, when the value systems are put in German, you say, from top to bottom and other way around. So it's not just about, like when we're talking about the modern times, it was very fascinating that modern technologies made it possible that so many new inspirations and impulses came to art. And I think right now we are also in such a time because it's mainly through the digitalization, but it's also like an amplifier for all the ideas and all the different perspectives that are put on the table. And now we are able, as I'm presenting a artist from Guatemala who is non-binary, so this is several different perspectives coming into place, and this is also part of the conversation.
Yes, for sure.
This is things that go much deeper, and also the identities that we are able to develop and we are able to see now. I think this is very revolutionary, and I'm looking forward for what's else to come. So.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's kind of a maybe overt questioning of institutional legitimacy, like museums maybe have less of a halo than they did quite recently, or I guess maybe young artists are kind of consciously engaged with sort of malaise of institutions, like not so much a critique, but just kind of tired of these institutions, and not knowing what will be next, I guess.
Okay. Thank you so much for just talk to me about.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you too. Us. Thank you, and let's see all around the fair.
Okay.
I hope so. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. All right.